I, I sometimes feel superior to other people because I feel I know more than another, or that I can do something more quickly than another, or that I feel I understand something in more depth than others. I've experienced this feeling pretty regularly in my life. And social constructs have served to strengthen that belief by well, by providing me with opportunities and resources, because what I do seems to receive attention admiration and praise from others, from schools, from people, from workplaces, colleagues. And I myself find beauty in the own emotions and thoughts and inner processes that I feel within me. And so I sometimes feel that I feel superior, that I feel like I'm more irreplaceable than other people. And what I've noticed is that the more frequently or the more strongly I feel I am superior, the more strongly also I feel a fear of maintaining that superiority, of losing, of yeah, not a fear of maintaining the superiority, a fear of losing that superiority, of of actually not being superior. And what that tells me is that, um, from experience, I've noticed these two feelings are interlinked. A feeling of like, I know how to do that better than you, or I know that and you don't know that. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's how it goes. There's immediately, even now that I was just doing that that little scene, it in me it felt like, yeah, I feel I'm special, and immediately there's something else that arose inside me. Very, it was like good. It was already peeking out. It was the feeling of, how do I keep that? How do I keep that? How do I maintain that? How do I strengthen that? It's very similar to the feeling of showing off, because showing off in a sense has the intent of displaying oneself, displaying one's abilities, and like it can be of displaying one's abilities, but usually in this context of I'm showing off, it's the usual intent is to obtain the approval of others, to see like, aren't you impressed? Aren't you impressed? And everyone goes, oh yeah, wow, and then you feel like, yeah, I'm superior. I still got it. Seeking that approval. That is different to making an objective display of one's abilities or knowledge, of simply stating it out. The difference is that there is no seeking of approval in the objective version. There is merely display. There's no expectation of how it can be perceived by others. Is it true then that this feeling of superiority is also strongly linked to social relationships? As in, is it important for me to feel or to be superior because it somehow can gain me status? It's like, yeah, like if I want this relationship to be true, the relationship of I am superior to others, if I believe in that, then I guess naturally I will be looking for evidence to support it in the world. Because a belief is something I live by. And so if others, if I believe, I am superior, I'm just superior to others, and I sometimes see evidence that, indeed, other people admiring me or praising me or paying attention to me, and I feel like, yeah, I'm special. It validates that belief. But then if I find a situation where I expect some approval or some praise and I do not see it, then I'll be like, there will be something weird, strange. How can he or she not have noticed my superiority? And in that case, well, one's belief is hurt in a way, because the belief is believed to be true, and then one finds evidence that that's not true, and it's like, that person does not feel that's praiseworthy. My ego. That belief is hurt. And then that's when reactions can start happening, and people do things and try to show off more to try to find the approval, and the other person maybe they yield and say, go, yeah, or they actually admire something, and then again the belief is validated. It seems to be that the part that needs validation seems necessarily linked to the external. Like that's the version I'm referring to. Because I'm imagining, what would it be if I feel myself superior, but and I just know it internally, and I have no need of validation from the outside world? Then it really is. Then it's somehow pretty pure. This belief, because it needs no validation. It just knows it. I mean, truly know it, not just believing that one's superior to others and still and trying to hide that superiority. No, like truly believing it. If one for some reason believes, I'm truly superior to others, and needs absolutely zero validation to do that, then nice, that's great. Because then one is not seeking validation or approval from others, and one does not care how other people are treating you, or are doing things, or are admiring or not admiring, or praising or insulting you, or or admiring you, or praising others, or insulting others. It's like, that doesn't matter. yeah, that's not, I wouldn't call that feeling superior. I would just call that feeling complete. Like, oh, I just feel complete. there is no there is no superiority in that case because there is no comparison. Right? If there were a comparison, then it's necessarily linked to the external world. Right? Cool. So yeah, I think it does with all comparisons. The limitation on feeling superiority or inferiority is that it confines us to a single metric. Comparison is necessarily a one-dimensional construct. And I mean comparison like larger or larger or smaller than. It's unidimensional. One can either say, oh, it's more over here or it's more over there. When we try to compare things in a richer space, like in 2 dimensions, there is no clear greater or lesser than. You can project something very multidimensional. You can project something extremely multidimensional, like this human here, with all my thoughts and all my beliefs and all my social relationships and possessions and knowledge and memories and the context. All of me, with my current state, with my emotions, with my thoughts, with my ideas, with my visions, with my everything. This is a rich being. And then if I find another rich being here, and it has this whole other world of things happening, and if one compares 2 people, one is projecting this amazingly rich being into one dimension, and this one too. By necessity, one can only compare superior or inferior, greater or lesser than in one dimension. That is the extent to which our mathematics have gone. And it can be something as it can be anything. It can be anything as simple as, well, I feel better about this person than about the other person. Okay, great. And then it's still one dimensional. It can be a very different thing. Like maybe it's not a metric of power or number of friends or money or knowledge or degrees, but it's a measurement of my feeling about it. Like, oh, I feel. And feelings are super complex. They're not something in a line. They are like, oh, like my yeah, I don't like his eyes, but the way he talks is soothing. But I don't know. There's some energy about it that kind of makes my stomach want to go away. And your own experience with the person is very influential. And then projecting all of that into a single point that can be compared to another rich being here whose feelings are also very, very rich, and projecting that into a single line, it's just limiting. It just forces us to ignore the richness of the objects we are comparing, which has a lot of utility. We compare a lot of things all the time. Industry compares things, commerce compares things. We use money and there is more money and there is less money. We have projected social value into a fairly unidimensional thing. I mean, we do have multiple currencies, but they are really correlated in the simple sense of more is more and less is less because they're numbers. But yeah, comparing people is it's necessarily opaquing most of us, most of the richness of us. And it's like, it's useful. I continue to feel that comparisons are useful. What is important to know is that it is different is that there's a difference between an assessment and a judgment. I can assess, for example, that I am here and that I have, I don't know, I know, then I am going to compare myself with this person over here, and I know 2.5 languages. So, okay, that's my metric. And this person knows 4.5 languages, so 4.5 languages. And then we can compare based on that, 2.5 and 4.5. And then we can objectively say, look, he knows more languages than I do. And I'd be like, okay, cool. That is an assessment. Plain and simple. We can also assess how high we are. Oh, is one taller than the other? Or let's see, our average skin color shade. What's my skin color like? Oh, okay, it's that. Okay, what's his skin color like? Oh, okay. We can go and plot them in some color chart, and then we see, oh, this is darker than the other, or this is greener than the other. We can compare anything we want. These assessments are very useful. They're the results of comparisons. Some of the results of comparisons. And they are only sometimes the results of comparisons. And then there is also, judgment. A judgment which can arise from an assessment. For instance, I know 2.5 languages and this person knows 4.5 languages. And then after that assessment, the assessment of he knows more languages than I do, I can also say, oh, yeah, that's much better. It's so much better to know all these languages because then you can move through so many more countries. It's that single word, better. That's better. And yes, it is evidently very useful in this world to know languages. The judgment there is better. And knowing more languages is better. It's good. And I would likely agree with that interpretation of the assessment. However, it's an assessment. It's a judgment. After the assessment, the objective assessment of how much of what the comparison was like, this person is taller, this person has more money, this person has more careers, this person knows more languages, this person is blah blah blah, weighs more, has more bone mass. Then one moving over to the past threshold of judgment, of evaluating, to judging and realizing, well, that is good or that is bad. It's different to assess and to judge. I think it follows the same way, with people. I feel for a long time in my life I have been assessing my own features and accomplishments in comparison to others. And I have also been deriving judgments from those and feeling actually superior. And it's quite unnecessary. It does very little. like, yeah, it rocks the waves a little bit. Some the emotions can go a little bit like, oh yes, I feel good, and then oh, I feel bad, I feel good, I feel bad, because sometimes we feel superior, and then when we find evidence that contradicts that belief, because there likely is evidence that conflicts with our belief, disappointment, and then validation, disappointment, validation. It rocks the emotional waves perhaps a little bit, but other than that, it's not. It uses up energy. It uses up energy in the feeling of validation. I guess it feels pleasant, but then the feeling of disappointment is like it feels bad, and then there is whenever there's a constant feeling of superiority, there's a constant feeling of fear of losing that superiority, of losing my treasure, my chocolate. I have my chocolate. Let me have it. I don't have my chocolate anymore. He has my chocolate. No, no. And that consumes energy that doesn't need to be consumed. And we can instead pay attention to it. Pay attention to our assessments. See how they can become judgments in ourselves or not. See how the energy flows inside of us, in our emotions, in our thoughts, in our sensations. And after we assess what the flow of energy is within us, we can choose to keep it as it is, or to change it somehow. We can choose to block the leaks. We can patch leaks if we feel that there are leaks. To me, an unconscious judgment feels like a leak of energy. It's an automatic projection that I did not know was happening. And perhaps it has its uses, although in general I believe I like it when I can discern between my assessment of something and my judgment of something. And I like to ponder on whether there needs to be any judgment at all. Reputation. I've had this thought in my mind of talking about reputation and credibility in a video of its own. I feel it's happening now instead. Reputation and credibility. So I feel that in making and publishing these videos, I feel some fear. A fear that my reputation becomes tarnished. That by publishing this to the world, I am seen by many known by many, and they can see me fully in all of my truth. And that feels vulnerable. It feels vulnerable to speak fully in my truth. Because I feel that parts of my life are built upon assumptions and frameworks that do not fit completely with my truth. I work in software engineering, and in software engineering, an objective mentality is highly prized. Is that true? Yeah. Objective mentality, focused mentality, healthy mentality in general, healthy and creative. And I'm all for that. I feel I have a healthy mentality. However, it is also true that healthy mentality is seen as very highly correlated, and even like it needs a trusting science, a complete trusting science. And actually not so much a complete trusting science, more like it needs one to like there are some topics that are taboo to consider as even as to even think about them really. There are people out there who are saying the earth is flat and showing maps and ways in which that is true, and people in the scientific engineering community, mathematical community, people who, well, not even in the scientific community, like most people, they're like saying, those flat earthers, what are they talking about? And so anyone who even like mentions flat earth as a possibility of like with the tiniest speck of possibility is naturally mocked, and it's pretty ostracized, I would say. Or at least that's the impression I have. And I do not have the belief that the Earth has a flat geometrical shape. It's just it's my go-to example because it's so heavily mocked. And there are other concepts in the world that are pretty strongly mocked by the stereotypical science and engineering community. These are topics like emotions. Applying importance to emotions is uncommon in science and engineering, because science and engineering relies on objectivity. It relies on precision, on correctness. And we have not tamed our emotions to that level. Our minds have found a certain sharpness that is required in science and engineering, but emotions, no, they tend to be fluffy, they tend to be like abstract, not easy to to grasp, not very predictable. And so it can be fairly shunned. Like, emotions are just not displayed regularly in the science and engineering community, so I feel somewhat afraid. I am expressing about emotions on my videos. I talk about sex, my own sex, my own process with my own acceptance of myself, of my sex. It is a strong topic for me. About analogies between the physical world and the abstract worlds. There's no, yeah, in the science and engineering community, it's also fairly taboo to be talking about spirituality and religion and energies in the world. It's not like, I don't think people would be actually mocked and ostracized by it, but but eh, but it's just not a topic that I would expect a lunch at a software company to include in a manner that is not mocking or that is not like shunning it away. The chakras, the nadis, the energies in the body, the energies in the world. So I feel some fear while making these videos and publishing these videos that my reputation is tarnished. I've been working in software engineering. Much of my growth has occurred from being educated amongst people who value objectivity and mentality and who are interested in science and engineering. And I have been too. However, my interests lately lie in the lie more in inner contexts, in inner topics. Not what to do with the world and how to do things well in the world, but rather, well, what is this being that I am managing? I have this being, I have a body with eyes and a nose and teeth and a tongue and and I put clothes on because I feel comfortable in them, and I write code and I get paid money. And I realized I love dancing at some point, and then I realized I love singing at some point, and then I realized after using my body and exercising my body in different ways for a few years, I realized what rich experience this life can be. And how often we as humans block ourselves from embracing, from integrating our complete rich experience into our lives because of the shames and fears that we have accumulated in this life. Shames and fears and hurts. They are just blockers. These are blockers in the flow of our piping, in the world. We are hubs and we have relationships with others through pipes, both physical and non-physical. And there are several types of non-physical pipes. There are money pipes, and there are emotional pipes, and there are pipes of attention through YouTube and things are flowing, and we have these bodies through which also things are flowing. My own emotions are flowing, my own mentality is flowing, my blood is flowing, my electrical impulses are flowing. I see that we accumulate blockages in our piping, both inside of us. For example, a common one from my mind, from my mind to my heart, or from my heart to my sex, through my body. We often block the flow between the parts of us, between the abstract parts of us, between our feminine side, our masculine side, our hurt side, our joy, our curious side, our strong-willed side. Sometimes we isolate them and say, okay, this is work me, and this is play me, and this is work me, and this is play me. And having these divisions just it's blocking the flow. And it's nice to play along with the flow, and sometimes we contain it, and sometimes we pipe it as we choose, but it's not. But having it blocked unconsciously and also unhealthily can cause problems, as with most. What is it? As with most blockages in pipes. You have a blockage in a pipe, you cannot call a plumber. We don't have emotional plumbers, so to speak, but we do have, I guess the closest thing is a psychologist. There are psychologists, there are therapists, there are sound healers, and they are doing what they can to help unblock. And none of them can truly unblock ourselves, unblock us, if we do not allow it. It is my feeling it is supremely important to find ourselves, find out how we operate. At the physical level, yes, let's get enough nutrients to live well. At an emotional level, let's feel free to express our emotions, and let's be aware of our own processes. A common pattern that arises is being hurt emotionally, not knowing how to deal with it, and then making anger around it to protect that hurt. Recognizing these patterns is important if we want to move that flow, if we want to move it. A problem is not solved unless it is made aware of first. And that is why I'm interested in these topics. In my experience, as we find the blockages in us and we discern them, recognize them, feel them, we can dissolve them and allow our mechanisms to continue flowing as they wish, as they will, and grow in a healthy manner. We are life. We are life that can grow, that is yearning to grow. And in its grow, it flows within us and between us. I wish for us to recognize our flows, our unflows, to be aware of them and to choose what to do with them. My feeling is many of us will choose to unblock them. And that is my hope, I think.